Going through a very painful divorce and suddenly being alone with Max. He was 18 months old.
When you first hear that your children are going to have to raise a child with disabilities, you're going to be heartsick.
The challenge with autism is the individuals seem quite removed.
Max takes over. For a controlled person like me, that's tough.
We have had some very hard times.
Max put to the test what I preach.
People look at my granddaughter, all they see is the tragedy.
We didn't know at the beginning, would she ever talk, would she ever walk?
She's very dependent on other people for everything.
That I have a father who's known the world around for trying to persuade people of the sovereignty of God.
Insofar he's made that decision to let it happen, he has ordained that it be so.
Now God says, here's this challenge. Do you really believe that this is from my hand?
In this episode, we will visit with two of the titans of Christian theology, Chuck Colson and R.C. Sproul. They've helped shape the biblical worldview that is carrying the Christian church through this modern era. They point others to the reliability of and practical help found in God's Word. But what happens when disability hits home? When God hands you a challenge that tests your convictions in practical, heart-wrenching, and not academic ways? Well, first let's visit with my friend and mentor, Chuck Colson, who, during the Nixon administration, served as top advisor to the president, during which he became entwined, then convicted, in the Watergate scandal. After serving time in prison and experiencing a conversion to Christ, Chuck Colson began Prison Fellowship, a ministry not only serving those incarcerated, but advancing prison reform. Chuck, however, is also deeply dedicated to his family, which brings us to the story in our episode. So let's journey to Massachusetts, where we will join his daughter, Emily Colson Bain, and her teenage son, Max.
I was a graphic designer.
Take it upstairs, take it upstairs, take it upstairs. Hey, wait, stop to fix it. My fire engine.
So everything he's worried about.
He walks into a room.
Upstairs. Okay.
It's like dropping, our daughter Emily says, like dropping a spoon into the blender.
Autism can affect every part of an individual. So Max has taken years to be able to make his fingers move to write. The speech is difficult, not just to retrieve the words, but then to actually speak the words. It's communication, it's processing information. It is, for many of them, it's anxiety. For Max, anxiety has been a huge problem for him. Going through a very painful divorce and suddenly being alone with Max. He was 18 months old and clearly not developing. It was a very, very painful time. The autism became very difficult when he was about 8 years old. Lots of tantrums, lots of very difficult behavior. It's very hard when families are unable to simply go to the grocery store. You run out of milk and you just need something so simple and you can't do it. We have had some very hard times.
When you first hear that your children are going to have to raise a child with disabilities, with all the burdens that go with it, with all the expense that goes with it, all the problems, you're going to be heartsick as a parent to see your child in that situation. You're going to really grieve for him or her. You're going to be worried about them. But as soon as you realized the problems you were dealing with, then it became a question, oh, how do we handle this?
When Max was young, my dad worked, I think, very hard to try to teach Max. My dad is a great teacher. I think it was frustrating for him because it didn't always go the way that he thought it would go. And Max wasn't always interested in learning about what Grandpa was interested in. When Max was 6, my dad ended up with the flu on one of our visits. And he was on the couch watching Max and I for almost a week. And it's pretty unusual for my dad not to be moving and getting phone calls and having an idea and going and writing it down. And every time my dad would get up and get a glass of water or do anything in another room, Max would jump up and sit right down in his grandfather's spot and pretend he had the flu. I think at that point, he realized that he had to get where Max was and meet Max where he was. And it changed everything.
I've always been the type A person, always busy, always on some crusade to save the world. You have someone like Max come into the family and everything else stops because Max takes over.
Yeah, but you need the music to dance to, buddy.
For a controlled person like me, that's tough.
What happened, Happy?
First thing I realized is that Max put to the test what I preach. If I preach that all human beings are created in the image of God, then I gotta live it.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Max is the only one that will get my dad to spend a week playing. I mean, really playing.
He's the only one that can keep me out of my office. My wife Patty tries, but usually without success. Max keeps me out of the office, and when he's in town, he's my agenda. I love it.
He gets my dad to play mini golf.
I'm kind of an introvert. I like quiet time. I don't have any quiet time when Max is around.
He gets in the pool, and, you know, Max will get his grandfather to act like a sea monster and make funny noises. And nobody can do that to my dad. And it's so wonderful. I think in many ways the situation has brought our whole family closer. They know that I've needed help in a lot of ways, and it's a lot of families that don't jump in.
It's never easy. You know, I've talked about the blessing it is to have Max and the blessing he is to us and the blessing he is to his mother. But that doesn't mean it's an easy deal. It's hard work. If you were alone and had no help, it would be overwhelming.
In my hardest times, my dad has been at the other end of the phone, no matter what he was doing. Whenever I would dial that number, he would say, "I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing a thing, Emily." And he would spend whatever time I needed on the other end of that phone. And that's a remarkable thing.